If you have any questions, feel free to contact me directly, and I will either get you an answer or answer it myself there as soon as possible. So with that said, I'll hand the floor over to Jeff and let him get started.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeff Cox. I am with Extreme Networks, and I am in the Corporate Systems Engineering Group based in Salem, New Hampshire. What I'd like to talk to you today about is Extreme Fabric Connect. So Fabric Connect is the technology that Extreme acquired when they acquired the networking business from Avaya. So just to give you some background on myself, I've been in the computer networking industry for about 25 years. Started off with a company called Wellfleet Communications back in the early 90s. And then they became Bay Networks. And then Nortel acquired Bay Networks. And then back in 2009, Nortel went bankrupt. And then I went to work for Juniper for a few years. But when I was at Juniper, one of the reasons Avaya called me and offered me a job. And one of the reasons that I went with Avaya is because of this Fabric Connect technology. So as you'll see, hopefully you'll find this presentation useful and you'll get something out of it. So let's see here. Okay, agenda. We're going to start off by introducing the technology, some high-level slides, what's the value of it. Then we'll go a little more in depth how it works, and then finally we'll talk about some customer deployment scenarios. As far as Q&A, Stephen, if they have questions, do you want me to take them, or I don't mind answering questions, as they come up, but how do you want to handle that? Whatever.
Well, we can take. I assume your presentation will take the full hour, Jeff. So we thought it'd be best to save the questions to the end. If we have some time at the end, we could take some questions.
Okay, great. That's fine. That'll work. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Fabric Connect. So a little bit. So when I say Fabric Connect, Fabric Connect is actually the marketing term. So Fabric Connect is the term that's equals shortest path bridging. Shortest path bridging is the actual technology itself. So also within Extreme, you'll hear one of our solutions, the Secure Automated Campus. So the Secure Automated Campus, the underlying technology is Fabric Connect and shortest path bridging. So shortest path bridging, Fabric Connect, it's a new way of building and managing networks today. So as you'll see, it's simple because all the network services that you'll configure in the campus are handled by a single technology, a single control plane technology. And we'll talk about that. With Fabric Connect, it makes it easy to virtualize your network at layer 2 and layer 3. All right, and we'll talk how we do that with the technology. And it's proven it. So Fabric Connect came out in 2011. So it's really not a new technology. It's been out for 7 years. So we have almost over 1,000 fabrics deployed worldwide. So it's proven. So basically, Fabric Connect's all about reducing costs because it's so simple and easy to manage your network. It enhances your agility because it is simple. It makes it easy to change your network to keep up with the demands of the business. And it offers improved stability and security, as you'll see, because it's so easy to virtualize your network at layer 2 and layer 3. It's inherently stable and secure. So it's fast. So as you'll see, as I talk about it, when you deploy a Fabric Connect fabric, all of the services are provisioned at the edge of the network. So no longer you have to touch every node in the network to bring up a new service? What do I mean by that? So if I want to extend the VLAN across my campus today, I have to go and touch every switch in my network where that VLAN will reside. With Fabric, you just configure the edge nodes, and the Fabric will automatically provision that end to end. Okay, it's flexible. Okay, so whereas in today's networks, if you want to add a new say multicast, a new service, you have to typically add a new protocol. With Fabric Connect, all of our services, layer 2, layer 3, unicast, multicast, are handled by one control plane protocol, and we'll talk about that. So it makes it easy to virtualize your network into secure segments, which we call hypersegmentation. So that makes it inherently secure. So no longer do I have one global layer 3 routing table in my network. With Fabric Connect, you can virtualize at layer 3, so I can hyper-segment my customer's network. Okay, and we'll talk more about that. So as I mentioned, it's proven. It's been out there for 7 years. We have a large install base, over 1,000 fabrics. Fabric Connect can scale from 2 or 3 nodes, or up to hundreds of fabric nodes. So it's very scalable and flexible. You can run Fabric all the way from the wiring closet up to the top of the rack. So end-to-end Fabric. And in the topology is very flexible. So some people's fabrics today are very rigid, and you can only connect them up in a certain physical topology. With Fabric Connect, you can connect any node to any node. It's very flexible as far as the topology goes. And it's unbreakable. It's very secure. So with our hypersegmentation, we can segment customers' networks into multiple layer 2 and layer 3 secure segments. So we have these hackathons at public and private events where we invite people to try to hack from one secure segment to the other, and no one has been able to do that so far. The technology at a glance. So Fabric Connect is an industry standard. Okay, it's both an IEEE and IETF standard. So some people have some fluff out there saying that Fabric Connect is proprietary to Extreme. It is not. Everything is industry standard. So a Fabric Connect leverages the ISIS protocol. So all services, layer 2, layer 3, multicast, are all handled by ISIS, and we'll talk more about that. It defines a service identifier called an ISID. So when you want to map a layer 2 or a layer 3 service, you simply map the service to an ISID, and then ISIS will compute the path for that service through the network. Okay. So looking at the graphic, this is a good view of what today's networks look like. So as I add a service like multicast, I have to add a protocol on top of another protocol. So the networks basically become very complex to manage. Okay. Whereas with Fabric Connect, all of my services are handled by one control plane protocol, ISIS. All right. In Fabric Connect, it's an Ethernet-based fabric. So all I'm doing is I'm taking the customer frame at the edge of the network. I'm putting on an Ethernet header at the edge of the fabric. The fabric is switching the frame based on that outer MAC header and then stripping it off at the other side. So there's a lot of fabrics out there. Some are layer 2 and some are layer 3. So, but they all use some sort of encapsulation technology to virtualize the network. And with SPB, it's a layer 2 Ethernet based fabric. So with Fabric Connect, it's very fast to provision a service. So on the left-hand side, that's the current network topology today. I have hop-by-hop provisioning. So when I want to add when I want to extend a layer 2 service across my campus, I have to go to each node along the way and add that VLAN, add the port members in. I have to run spanning tree all the way through so I don't have any loops. Now with Fabric, once you've built the Fabric, you only provision the VLAN at the edge of the network. So here I have a video surveillance camera. I would just create the VLAN at my edge nodes, and then ISIS would basically compute the path for that layer 2 service through the network. There's no spanning tree in the core of my network. Once it's built, there's really no IP in the core of the Fabric either, other than a management address. Okay? And we'll talk more about that as well. So on the left, you've got complex to manage, very inflexible, and on the right with Fabric Connect, simple and easy. Automated attachment. So we have an additional technology which we call Fabric Attach, which will automate attachment of edge devices like phones, APs, video surveillance cameras. And basically the way it works, you plug the device in to the network. It gets authenticated with our management suite of applications, and basically the access controller will download the VLAN and the service identifier, okay, to the switch, and will automatically put that device on the appropriate VLAN, basically, or service network. Okay, so that's the automated attachment. The user really doesn't have to do anything. The device gets authenticated and put on the correct layer 2 segment. So flexible, as I mentioned, ISIS handles all of the required services in the Fabric. Okay, so basically it's horizontally independent. As I add a service, I don't have to add another protocol like I would have to in a traditional customer network, campus network today. Once the Fabric is built, ISIS handles all of these services needed for the network. Multicast, we'll talk about multicast. At Extreme, we have a lot of traction in multicast environments. Casinos in particular, as anyone who's ever been to a casino, you know that there are video cameras everywhere, and they tend to be multicast based. So what they found with traditional networks in using PIM is that they wouldn't scale, right? Because as you add cameras, as you add sources, PIM just can't scale. So with Fabric Connect, we offer a PIM-less, basically, deployment. Basically, ISIS will advertise the multicast information. So we've had a lot of traction with casinos because this Fabric Connect is very scalable and simple to use and manage in large multicast environments. And we'll talk more about that later on. So hypersegmentation, I mentioned that briefly. So what do I mean by hypersegmentation? Because Fabric Connect lets enterprises virtualize their network easily, it allows them to now hypersegment their network into basically communities of interest. Okay, so with that, if anyone were to hack into a particular virtualized network, they wouldn't be able to go anywhere. They would only be able to move within that virtual segment, okay? Because either layer 2 or layer 3, they cannot get to other segments because they don't have any reachability to those other networks today. So that's what we mean by hypersegmentation. The ability and the ease of hypersegmenting your network based on either layer 2 or layer 3. So, and also stealth. So hypersegment is stealthy as well. And what do I mean by that? So on the left is a depiction of what a typical campus IP network looks like today. All of the routes, all of the customer routes are within one routing instance or one VRF typically in a campus campus network. So for example, if a hacker were to hack into a video surveillance camera or some sort of IoT device, it has reachability to every device on that network because it is part of just one virtualized network. Okay. Now with Fabric, since we can hypersegment at layer 2 or layer 3, we can segment those devices into separate virtual networks. So for example, everyone heard about the Target hack a number of years ago where the hacker hacked into I think it was like some sort of a heat controller of some sort. So, but once they hacked into that device, because the network was not virtualized, they were able to get into more sensitive areas like customer financial records, that type of thing. Whereas with Fabric, that wouldn't happen. You would have segmented all of your IoT devices in one virtual segment, okay, and then controlled through your firewall the access to all the other virtual segments. So your financial records information would have been in a separate network, and any hack wouldn't have been able to access that. So that's what I mean by a hypersegment in stealth, okay? Elasticity, so this is goes along with the stealthiness, the auto attachment with a Fabric attached technology. So you'll notice, so here we have an example of the video surveillance camera on the left, and then the middle one, it's on the network. I've authenticated, it's on the network. Now I take it off, okay? Once you take it off, that virtual segment disappears from the access switch. Okay, so that VLAN and ISID service identity goes away. Okay, so then you can plug it in to any other part of the network. You plug the camera into the edge switch, and then that camera would get authenticated with our access control server, and then it would get put on the appropriate network service. Okay, so that's what I mean by elasticity. That VLAN, that segment, once that camera's removed, that virtual segment gets deleted. So it's one more way that Fabric Connect enables security. Okay. Layered technologies. So we talked about Fabric Attached. That's the automated attachment at the edge of the network. Fabric Extend. So because Fabric Connect is a layer 2 based fabric, in order to extend it across a layer 3 wide area network, we need to basically put it in IP. So Fabric Extend basically is our technology that we use to extend Fabric out to the wide area. And then finally, policy. We'll talk about policy a little bit. Policy is how we authenticate and authenticate the end device and put it on the correct user segment. Okay. Extreme Management Center. So here at Extreme, we have a very comprehensive and robust set of management applications. So when I was with Avaya, that's one thing we were missing. We had obviously the Fabric Connect technology, but we really weren't very strong in with the management applications. So here at Extreme, we have, like I said, a very strong set of management applications. So on the left, we have Extreme Control. So this is your network access control server. So when I plug my device in, the device gets authenticated to access control, and it downloads basically the VLAN ISID mapping for that device, as well as policy information. So not only does it control what segment the device is on, but it also controls what services that device has access to on the network. So very powerful. So it gives you the visibility of the device and gives you also the control of the device. Extreme Analytics. So this is the application that gives you the application analytics capability. So what applications am I running on my network? What's the response time? What's the performance of my application? And who on my network is using what? So that gives you the actionable business insights. And finally, the Extreme Management Center. This is the 360-degree single pane of glass management, okay, of the network. So provisioning and monitoring of the devices on my network. Okay, so how it works, those are the benefits of Fabric Connect, the value of Fabric Connect. So now we're going to dig a little deeper and talk more about the underlying technology, so how it works. So a little bit of history on Fabric Connect. Fabric Connect came out about 2008, 2009. It was really based on what was called provider backbone vision back then, and that was really a metro area technology. Okay, so Fabric Connect, it basically took the good parts of Ethernet and the good parts of MPLS and came up with Fabric Connect. So Ethernet with the good parts, it's simple and it's cheap, right? Every manufacturer has a layer 2 switch. It's simple and it's fast. Bad, when you try to virtualize with Ethernet, it was very difficult because really all you had were the Q tags. So, we came up with Q and Q. We were trying to virtualize that, but that didn't work. That didn't scale very well because all of the, you only have so many Q tags. And then also the other thing, it didn't scale because all the customer MAC addresses were exposed in the core of your network, so it didn't scale. And then finally, it's still relying on STP, spanning tree protocol for the loop avoidance. MPLS, the good. With MPLS, it provided the layer 2, layer 3 virtualization for customers, for providers. But the bad, I don't know if many people have tried to configure MPLS, but it's very difficult to configure and manage. It is widely deployed in wide area networks, but those companies typically have the staff and the know-how to configure and manage the network. The ugly, it requires a lot of protocols to provide the services that it does. So basically what Fabric Connect is, it took the best of Ethernet and the best of MPLS, but greatly simplified, the protocol and the deployment. So here's a good graphic of MPLS on the left. These are all the protocols you need to run to provide a layer 2 and layer 3 service. Okay, so you've got 6, 7 protocols. Like I said, hard to manage, difficult to configure. On the right, we have all of the services, layer 3, layer 2, both for IPv4, IPv6, okay, all handled by ISIS. So simple to configure, and simple to manage. Okay, so we took the best of MPLS, the layer 2 and layer 3 virtualized services, and we brought them basically to the campus, okay, the enterprise. So now enterprises can take advantage of all of the layer 2, layer 3 virtualization. So here's a comparison of the complexity. So these are all the commands on the left to provision a layer 2 service in MPLS network. So there's probably a dozen commands there. Now on the right, that's how you provision a layer 2 service in Fabric Connect. It's actually 2 commands. You would have to, so really with Fabric Connect, you configure the VLAN. Okay, you configure the VLAN, you add the local ports into the VLAN, and then you map it to a service identifier. So here you can see I'm mapping VLAN 7 to service identifier 700. Now I only have to do that at the nodes I want that VLAN to exist. I don't have to touch all the nodes in my fabric. So once I do that, ISIS will distribute that information and automatically create a path through the network for that service. And there's a quote there from Mark Starry of Concord Hospital, one of our customers. I'll let you read it, but they just love how simple it is to manage and configure. Services. So what do I mean by services? So everyone probably, when I say layer 2 virtual service network, basically that's just a VLAN, right? It's a VLAN mapping to a service identifier and I'm stretching that across my campus wherever I need. Okay, but as I said, you only have to do that at the edge of the network. You don't have to touch each node in the core of your network. Excuse me, a layer 3 VSN or layer 3 virtual server. This is what we call, or VRF. Okay, I think everyone's probably heard of VRFs over the years. It's a virtual layer. Think of it as a virtual layer 3 switch within the box. Okay, within the physical switch. In every switch, every router, VRFs, the concept is very old. Every switch router vendor has been doing it for a long time, but the difference is, traditionally, when you spun up another VRF, you had to add another protocol. You had to add another instance of OSPF. So as you added VRFs, the complexity of managing the network increases. So here with Fabric Connect, as you add VRFs, you don't have to add another control plane instance. ISIS handles all of the routing information, so it makes it easy to manage and configure a layer 3 virtual switch network. And then inter-VSN routing. So if you have multiple layer 3 VRFs in your network, we have the policy and the control capability to what we call leak routes between the two VRFs. Okay, so even though they are completely isolated by default, you can, if you want to have some communication between those two layer 3 networks, we do offer that capability. Fabric Connect overview. So ISIS is the control plane. As I mentioned, it is a link state protocol similar to OSPF. So it does, when you bring up the fabric, each fabric node will bring up an ISIS adjacency to its neighboring node, as you can see in this graphic. So it'll bring up the adjacency and it will exchange topology information between the nodes in the fabric. So they all have a complete view of both the services in the fabric and the topology of the fabric. But it's very easy to configure and bring up. As I mentioned, there are no blocked paths in the fabric. Every link is utilized. There's no spanning tree, so you don't have to worry about creating loops in the fabric. It is inherently loop free. So, and as I mentioned, the core nodes in the fabric, once you've done some basic configuration, give it an IP address for management, very rarely do you have to touch that node again. Okay, like I said, it's very stealthy. It only has one IP address for management, and that's it. All of the services, all of your customer routing information will be configured at the edge of the network typically. Layer 2 services, we talked a little bit about this. It's just, I configure my VLAN at the edge, their VLAN 20, and I'm mapping it to an ISID. Now the ISID is completely up to the customer to decide what ISID they use. Some customers use VLAN 20 and ISID 20s. Others, add 100 in the front, and so it'd be 10,020 or something like that. So there's it's a 24-bit field. The ISID identifier is a 24-bit field in the SPV header. So that's over 16 million ISIDs. So customer's not going to run out of ISIDs. So here you're mapping VLAN 20 to ISID 100. So, and then you just go to the nodes where you want that VLAN, that service to exist, and you just create the VLAN and map it to an ISID. You can either do that through the CLI, or you can do that through Management Center, or we have a web-based configuration utility. We offer a number of ways to do that configuration. We're constantly adding automation, okay, to Management Center. So in the future, you'll have very automated ways of provisioning your network. But a lot of people are comfortable with the CLI. It's very simple to configure. Once you do that VLAN ISID mapping, then ISIS will advertise that information to all the other fabric nodes in the network. Layer 3 services, very similar. Here, it's a layer 3 service, so we're configuring a VRF. Okay, so this in a campus environment, this could be a multi-tenant environment, so it actually is an end customer, or it could be a service. It could be in a hospital. It could be you want to isolate all of the radiology devices. Right? A lot of these MRI machines are very old. A lot of them are still running old OS, Windows 95, which are not very secure, and you can't upgrade them. So we need to isolate these. So we want to put those in our own VRF layer 2 segment or layer 3. So here, imagine this is a hospital, and we spin up VRF2 as the radiology VSN. So you just create the VRF, you add your edge IP VLANs, okay? You create the VLAN and you give it an IP address. That is your default gateway for the devices at the edge of the network. Okay, so net 1, net 2, and then all you do is just redistribute those routes into ISIS, and now those routes are reachable to all the other VRF2 locations, okay? The last thing I should mention is when you create the VRF, you also map that to an ISID. Okay, so here VRF2 is mapped to ISID 200. So that's how, so all the VRF2s have to be mapped to 200. And so they're all part of the same virtual switch network, okay? So it's very easy to provision. It's just, you spin up the VRF, you create your edge VLANs, and then you redistribute routes into ISIS, and you're done. IP shortcuts, same thing as the VRFs. IP shortcuts is just the default, what we call the global routing table. This is the default VRF you get out of the box, okay? So when you create your VLAN, if you don't specify what VRF you want to put that VLAN in, it goes in what we call the global routing table, or VRF0. But the concept is the same. Basically, you create your VLANs, your IP interfaces, and then you just redistribute those direct routes into ISIS. Service flexibility. This slide, typically in a fabric network, you route at the edge or the distribution layer. Okay, you've got your wiring closet. I will point out you can run Fabric Connect all the way up to the wiring closet, but typically we recommend just routing at the distribution layer. Okay, so all my wiring switches come down to my distribution layer. That's the edge of the fabric. So that's where you would create your VLANs, your IP interfaces, and redistribute those routes into ISIS. But we do offer the flexibility to route in the core. So that's what this graphic is trying to show. I have VLAN 21, and I'm extending that VLAN, that layer 2 service, into the core of the network, and that's where I'm doing my routing. Okay, so that's what we mean by flexibility. You either can route at the edge, at the distribution layer, or you can route in the core. We don't, it's all up to the customer. So basically what this allows you to do, you could actually extend all of your layer 2 segments, say into your data center, and just route on like two switches basically. So it's like a collapsed core network. Typically we don't see that, but you certainly have that flexibility. So once again, flexibility, right? So here they were routing in the core of the network, and now they switched and they want to route at the edge. So it's very easy to change with Fabric Connect. Right? It's not rigid at all. Video surveillance. I mentioned about the inroads we've made with casinos with video surveillance. The way we do multicast is very slick, very clever. In a nutshell, so here you can see video cameras, surveillance cameras. They're sources. They're typically the sources of multicast traffic. Okay, so in a typical casino, there could be thousands of these cameras. So there's many sources, many sources, only a handful of receivers. So typically all of these cameras go back to some sort of central monitoring station. So those are the receivers of all of these video feeds. But the way it works, so you're still running what's called IGMP, which is the Internet Group Management Protocol, Multicast protocol. So this is the protocol. It's an industry standard protocol that the receivers that use to join and leave the multicast group. So we still run that at the edge of the network, but in the core of the network, we do not run PIM. So we're just running ISIS. So when an edge node sees a multicast source, it'll map that source group pair to an ISID. So, and then ISIS will just distribute that information throughout the network. And then when a receiver wants to join a particular stream, it just sends a join upstream to the edge of the fabric, and then the fabric will just join that ISID. Okay, so it's very, very scalable and very simple to configure and manage. Now we talked about this, IP shortcuts, one control plane. You can run multicast on VRF0, or you can run multicast in a layer 3 VRF. So we give you the option of doing either or both. So with layer 3 VSNs, by default, when you buy a extreme switch, a fabric switch, it comes with VRF0. But to enable the layer 3 VSNs, it does require an additional license to enable that capability. How it works. So once again, I have a sender that's sending to this group 239.0.0.10. It reaches the edge of my fabric, and then I dynamically, the fabric node will dynamically map that to a service identifier and distribute that service information to all the other nodes in the network. So then when you have a receiver that wants to join, it just sends an IGMP join to its local fabric switch, and basically it will join that stream, and the multicast will stream to that node, okay? So by default, if you don't have any receivers for a particular multicast stream, it won't be transmitted across the fabric. It only transmits multicast information to nodes that want to receive it, okay? So just to wrap up, you know, that is the Fabric Connect technology. It's a very simple, scalable solution. Even though it is a standard, Extreme's really the only one that offers this technology. So we are, you know, we're all about helping customers simplify their networks today. So all customers, they're all being asked to do more with less. So this technology will help them greatly simplify and secure their network. Okay, so I hope that, you know, I've whet your appetite for this technology. You know, as I mentioned, when I was with Juniper, this is really the reason I went over to Avaya, is really for this technology. I thought it was very interesting, unique, and just simple. You know, it just shocked me that no one thought of this before. It's like the light bulb goes on. Why weren't people doing this 10 years ago? Because it's really just, as I mentioned, it's just Ethernet. It's just using existing technology, but in a much, much better way, okay? So hopefully I've whet your appetite for the technology, and like I said, it's really, you know, once we talk to customers about it, they love it, and they just, yeah, they just love it. And as I said, it's not just a campus technology. You can run it all the way from your wiring closet all the way to the top of rack. Okay, so we have many customers running in their data center as well. Customer deployment examples, I only have a few. As I said, we've got about over 1,000 fabrics worldwide. So the Bell Center in Montreal, you know, access points, you know, all of this is just managed by one person. So that's the simplicity in action. Healthcare, one of our stronger verticals. They love it because they can, you know, with HIPAA and all these regulations, that they have these very stringent regulations they have to meet. With Fabric and the virtualization, it can totally isolate all of the sensitive, customer patient records from part of the network. So we've very, very, very strong inroads in the healthcare, education, K through 12 education, a lot of fabric customers. So even though we call it new, it's been around a while, and we've had a lot of success with Fabric Connect. So I hope you guys enjoyed that, and like I said, I really don't know the audience. Steven said there was going to be some technical, some sales reps on the call. So hopefully, you've got an appreciation for the benefits of it, and basically how the technology works at a high level. So, with that,
let's go ahead and open it up for Q&A. If we've got multiple partners represented on this call, but there might be some generic questions that some of these guys have. If anybody wants to ask some questions directly to Jeff, feel free. Also, I can share this presentation. I can send just send me an email. Those of you who know me, my name is art.cedarberg or actually it's a.cedarberg at extremenetworks.com. And I'll send you a copy of it if you don't have my email. So we can send it in a PDF so you can review it. But if anybody has any questions, feel free. Maybe that since we are a mixed bag of partners, there some folks might be hesitant to ask some questions, but.
Well, and the other thing is that we do offer Fabric Connect workshops around the country. So we've found that those are very successful. Customers are interested or partners are interested, but they want to take the next step and actually do something. Those are very, and we certainly can offer those up as well.
Yes, I've been in some of the workshops, and it's kind of jaw dropping at times when you see this demoed. And you see how easy it is to set up, and how quickly, you can unplug stuff, plug it back in, back and forth, and you still don't lose your video stream. It's great. It shows very well. Well, very good, guys. Sounds like there's no questions at this time.
Okay.
But if anyone would like to, send a question to me or Steven, either one, feel free, and we'll get those answered for you. Well, thanks very much for joining us, everybody. And Jeff, thanks for your time this morning as well.
Right. Well, happy holidays, everyone.
Yep. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.